Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of, I don't know, whatever this is called. I'm on the Enfield this morning, heading back up to Katoomba Music for another shift. Woohoo! Income! I've also got to give this microphone back that I've been evaluating, so I thought I'd do one more video with it before I have to give it back, and I still haven't decided if I'm going to purchase one or if I'll do more of these videos and I'll just narrate over the top of them when I get home after I've edited them. Last night I did purchase a new pack of 3M adhesive to mount this GoPro somewhere else, and I also bought a handlebar mount. I thought I'll take this out for a ride. It's only been a few weeks since I've ridden this, and I thought, well, why not, you know? Why not? It's about 8:45 in the morning, so it's still a brisk morning in the mountains. Hey look, there's me! So I thought today I might talk to you about the Royal Enfield that I bought. So I purchased this second hand, and it had about, I don't know, 20,000 Ks on it. Right now, the odometer says 2,596 kilometers, and there's a reason for that. The speedo on this broke at 31,000. So I got this changed legally. I went through all the legal sources to get this changed properly. The government knows about the odometer being reset because I had to buy a new speedo. So that's one of the major faults that this has had. What else has gone wrong with this bike? During my ownership, the things that have gone wrong with this bike have mostly been losing nuts and bolts. And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Through the handlebars and the seat and the pegs, I barely get any vibration. The most vibration I get is around the 70 kilometer an hour mark. Right now, sitting on 60, you know, it's just a nice massage. It's not annoying at all. You could probably do this all day long. Doing 70, massive violent vibrations, and as soon as you go past 70 and get up to 75 and 80, it smooths right out. At about 90 to 100, it's great. It doesn't vibrate any worse than my Harley Davidson, which, you know, that's not really a valid comparison. However, the thing I find is that these do get better with age, and it really does depend on how people have modified them, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. So this has 40,000 Ks on it now. It's never had the engine apart at all. The cylinder head has never been decoked. Now, the reason I'm riding this as well today and wanted to talk about it is because I'm riding this around Australia, and my thinking is, if it's not broke, don't touch it. You know, I'm going to service it before I go. I'm going to whack some brand new tyres on it before I go. And these little camping trips that I've been doing, and I will be doing, are all really just shakedown cruises. They're just shakedowns for the real thing. Couple hundred Ks here, couple hundred Ks there, packing the bike differently, putting things in different spots, you know, balancing things out, finding out that this doesn't work there and that strap doesn't work here, and all that stuff. It is due for a service soon, so I probably will be doing that this weekend. The other problems I've had with this are little things like rubbers perishing and, you know, little tiny leaks and weeps and stuff here and there. But they're all really easy fixes that, to be honest, on a bike of this sort of quality and reputation, you're really not expecting a lot. But this bike, you know, I had it for sale, and in the end, I can't get rid of it. Not because no one wants it. I had plenty of bites. In the end, I decided I loved it too much. You could call it charm and character, and I would. And the reason I giggle a little when I say that is because charm and character really is normally how people describe a bike that, or any vehicle for that matter, that comes with problems. Like I said, the biggest problem I've had with this is just, you know, the speedo failing. But it's a bike that I just love. I just absolutely love it. It's kind of grown on me. It's a very practical bike. It just plods along. It's economical. The parts are ridiculously cheap. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that have happened to this bike since I bought it. First of all, the handlebars have been swapped back to the originals. This came with these weird sort of faux clip-ons. The main problem with those to start with is they didn't fit properly. No matter where you angled them, they bound against the petrol tank. Not hard, they didn't leave a dent, but they certainly left a mark. And that's just, you know, poor fitment as well as poor choice of handlebars. The other thing that happened when they put the handlebars on, see these switch blocks? Normally all motorcycles have a little tiny pin inside that switch block that locates them onto their OEM handlebars. And when I was a bike mechanic all those years ago, when you put new handlebars on a bike, aftermarket ones especially, you had to locate those pins. Now what I found in my history and my experience is that what most people do is they break those pins off and they mount these controls, and then you go to press a button and the switch block spins on the handlebar no matter how much you tighten up the screws. Those screws aren't meant to tighten up the handlebar switch blocks to the point where they're going to stay mounted, because what happens is the cheap plastic, and they use machine screws, they don't use wood screws. The machine screws just chew out the plastic and thread everything. And then you wonder why no matter how much you tighten it, the switch block still rotates. And then, because of the vibrations of the motorbike, the screws end up falling out and your switch block falls apart 300 kilometers away from home on a Sunday ride. So what we used to do when I was a bike mechanic was we used to get out a little, 5 or 6 mil drill, and we drill a hole in the new handlebars to locate where the pin goes for the switch blocks. Problem solved. Handlebars are good. Everything's happy. Now what I've done is I not only had to buy new handlebars, I had to buy new switch blocks, because the old switch blocks, well, they just span on these, they spun. Span? They didn't span, that's a different word, Steph. They spun on the handlebars, causing, well, dangerous situations. You go to press the horn, for example, which I'll talk about in a second as well, and the block would spin, the whole block would spin, and you wouldn't press the horn because it would just go root underneath the handlebar. Talking about the horn while I'm talking about stuff, so I've mentioned the speedo, the odometer, handlebars, switch blocks. Switch blocks needed to be replaced because of stupidity, not because of the fault of the motorcycle. The actual switches and everything work absolutely fine. What else have I replaced? Yeah, the horn. So the horn didn't need replacing, but what happened is the silly, tiny piece of sheet metal that's obviously made from a recycled Coke can broke. And one day my horn came loose and fell off. And luckily I found it. I rode home without a horn, I just left it in my pocket. What I also found was the contacts were really corroded and really loose. So I polished them up and sprayed some contact cleaner on there and tightened up this little spade plugs, the female spade plug, and pushed them back on. The mount that I actually made at my friend Reckless's on your Echo. He's a top bloke. He's building a hot rod, so I went to his place to grab some spare sheet metal. It's pretty nice and heavy duty. That horn mount is never ever going anywhere. We even painted it with 2 coats of black. When I got home I actually painted a clear coat on it. Now the thing's great. And the horn works too. What else have I fixed? Oh, I got new handlebar end weights when I bought the handlebars as well, talking about handlebars. And the reason for that was because the aftermarket handlebars had aftermarket mufflers. Let's put some aftermarket mufflers on my aftermarket handlebars, mate. Yeah. The aftermarket handlebars didn't have provisions for weights, but what the previous owner had done was they'd put on some bar end mirrors, and they weren't heavy weighted bar end mirrors, so you'd get even more vibrations through all of the handlebars, and it was shocking. It was horrible to ride. So if anything, I mean, this has just made the bike more pleasant to ride. The handlebars being in the right position also helps. What's happened there is that it makes the ride way more comfortable. Normally I'd at least get through one tank of petrol before needing to stop. And I did things like I bought an aftermarket seat, which I didn't end up liking, so I sold that to a gentleman up near Wauchope, up near Port Macquarie. So I put the original seat back on when I put the original handlebars back on, and I found that the bike was much more comfortable. So I found that, you know what, a lot of people modify these bikes because they're really cheap to buy, they're really cheap to modify, parts are crazy cheap. The thing is that I find that the more modifications you do to this, the worse it gets. Now, some of the other modifications was the exhaust. It had this big open megaphone style, I think they called it a reverse cone exhaust, except it didn't have the reverse cone on it. It just had this flat pipe on the end of it, and it was freaking loud. On one hand, it sounded really nice for about 5 minutes, and then it sounded awful because it was so loud, and the tone was really pingy and really high pitched. So what would happen is that you would just have this headache and ringing ears afterwards. And you know, like, loud's nice, but guess what, man, too loud is not nice. You want to have some sort of, you know, tone and volume to your muffler. That's great, except you don't want to come home with the ears ringing and a headache. And so I put the original exhaust back on. Now, something I found when I did that, and I found it immediately because I actually fitted the exhaust on, well, I fitted the exhaust at the guy's house I bought it off. He had bought himself an aftermarket exhaust, and good for him. I hope he loves it. I hope it works out for him. For me though, as soon as I was going to bring the original exhaust home with me, and I rode the bike to pick it up, except we all know how massive the Royal Enfield exhaust is. I didn't realise they were that big, and it wasn't going to fit in my backpack. So I got some tools out, and I replaced the aftermarket exhaust with the OEM one I bought off this gentleman in his driveway, and I rode home with it. Now, one thing I found when I did that was that I had a lot more mid-range torque and power. Now, when I say a lot, these engines, from the factory they produce about 26.5 horsepower, and this thing's got some kilometers on it, so let's call it 20. But by the time you actually get it down to the back wheel with all your, you know, your gearbox reduction and your final drivetrain and all that stuff, you're left with about 19 from the factory. So really, I'm probably only getting about, I don't know, 15 or 16 horsepower at the rear wheels right now. That's a total guess. I've never put this on a dyno. I think it's stupid too. These are the sort of bikes, why would you bother doing that sort of thing? Then again, why would you bother doing all these mods? Now, what I found is that this is a stock standard engine, and it had a stock standard air filter with the stock standard ECU, because it is an ECU model, it's not a carbureted model. And what I found was that I got better mid-range, I got better fuel economy. Now, the other modification I did was I found out that these originally, they were supposed to come with that plastic cover that goes in the air filter box. And two things happen with that air filter box. One of them is that it's actually not doing any filtering, so anyone who doesn't have this plastic cover should buy one. I think they're only about $50 brand new, $50 Australian brand new. What I found was as soon as I fitted that, it made the engine a little quieter again. But what it did also do is that it brought me even more mid-range torque. Now, we're coming up to this hill right here. I think it's Boddington Hill. I'm going to do about 90. Well, I got up to about 85. Full throttle. And I'm going to get up this hill, hopefully without having to brake because of these cars getting in front of me. Hopefully they'll just sit on the speed limit. But here we are doing 90, and I'm still getting up this hill. This is quite a steep hill. I'm in 5th gear. I haven't geared down. I'm still doing 90. Oh, dropping down to about 88, 85, no, 88, 90. I'm really not being affected by... I'm slowing down now because this car's slowing down. But I'm not really being affected by the hills because the mid-range torque is there, and that's where all the power is on this bike, the mid-range. That's where this bike lives. With the exhaust and the lack of cover over the air filter, and and the wrong spark plug as well. I've been recommended to take a BP R5ES or 6ES. This thing had like an 8 in it or something, and I think the higher the numbers on the NGKs, then what that means is that the higher the numbers, the colder the plug. I'm not really sure of why they did that, whoever did that, but good for them. So I found that when I changed the plug back to a BPR, I think it's a BPR 6ES, I found that not only did it idle better and start better for that matter, but it also ran better at full speed. So with all of these different undoing modifications, I did find that the bike is more comfortable, it vibrates less, it runs better, and at the end of the day, you know, don't mess with it. And now, you know what, go and mod bikes, I don't care. Oh, it's so cold up here, my nose has started running. Alright, I'm going in this lane. I guess the thing is that a lot of people have an aversion to the brand because of reliability issues. I have to say, I've only ever been stranded once with this bike, and that was because the negative battery strap broke off, which is a common and well-known issue. Let's do the speed limit, hey? School zone. I didn't get stranded really. What had happened was that the bike kept cutting out, and because it was during the day, I couldn't see the engine light, the MIL light, MIL light. I couldn't see it coming on, and it would have given me a big hint if that was the case. And I thought maybe the fuel filter inside the tank, because it's EFI, so it's inside the tank. I thought maybe that's blocked. Maybe there's an issue with the computer, and I thought, oh gosh. And this was my first EFI equipped motorcycle, ironically, because the last time I'd owned a bike was the ZX6R, and that was a 98 model, and it was carbureted. That's the only time it's left me stranded. I've never had any other issues, knock on wood. Whoa, that's chilly. Oh, that's chilly. Wow. Oh, thank you, sun. Oh, that's nice. You know what? Overall, I'm really happy with this motorbike. It's a good little chug along. Just gets on with the job. Just a good little torquey engine. It's an honest bike. Now, the unreliability thing, you know what? I have a little bit of a theory about that, and I'm sorry to say, but a lot of the videos of these bikes are shown, they're using a rock or a brick to hammer in something. I find that the way that these bikes are handled, any bike for that matter, I mean, you put a ZX6 or GSXR, would you want to sit there watching someone hammering in some rear brake shoes with a rock? No, you wouldn't want to see them doing any of that at all. I just find that sometimes some of these unreliability concerns come from the poor maintenance and workmanship rather than because of the bike itself. Now don't get me wrong. I know where these are made. I know that one bike will have perfect alignment and the other one won't. One fork will have 320 mils of oil and the other fork will have 280 mils of oil. There is a fair bit of that sort of mentality, and I understand, but I guess maybe I'm lucky with this one. I will say though, there's some other mods I'll talk about. The rear end of this bike was not well. The previous owner had put these bullet indicators, which you can still see on the front because I haven't bought any OEM ones for the front. So they're a bit mismatched. I don't know if you can see those. The ones at the back are now OEM, along with the tail light assembly and the number plate. Now what had happened was they had put these bullet indicators under the rear seat, or under the front, the rider's seat. What had happened was that they didn't run new wires to the new indicators. They just ran the wires from the rear of the mudguard at the back, where the tail light is, all the way back to the front, through the original loom, and just re-taped it up with some electrical tape. The problem is that they made the loom thicker, and by making the loom thicker, what they done then was it made it rub against the tyre. So eventually the lights stopped working, which is horrible. No indicators, no brake lights, no tail light. So I fixed that. Now, do I have a parking spot? Oh yeah, I'll take that. Oh yeah, rockstar parking again. Derp. Alrighty folks, I'm on my way home now. I don't have the microphone anymore, so all you're going to hear is wind noise in this video. So I thought when I get home I'll do an overdub thing and talk briefly about the microphone. Overall, I think I was happy with the quality of the microphone. The only two things I didn't like about the mic are these. The windsock that comes with it pretty much disintegrated within 24 hours of use, which is a real shame. You know, if it lasted a week, I would be less disappointed. If it lasted a month or a year, you'd think, oh well, that's the way it goes. Now obviously those windsocks, they're replaceable anyway. It's a consumer item, you will go through them. But it was just, you know, one day, 24 hours, that was a little bit crappy. The other thing I didn't like about it was the USB connector that it comes with that connects the TRS 3.5mm jack, which is your standard sort of headphone microphone jack, to the GoPro. That cable, even though it's short, that's great, that part's fine, it's a straight jack, and so it sticks out, which meant that it made mounting your GoPro to your helmet very limited in options. It got in the way. It stuck out about 4 or 5 centimeters in total, and it made it very challenging. Apart from that though, the microphone worked great. So I just want to thank everyone for watching. This is a little bit different, this video. I'm going to be doing more bike videos and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm going to have the microphone with me at all times. I'll probably end up doing overdubs like this. We'll see how we go. But these videos are different because, you know, work's changed, life has changed. I'm an unemployed musician, so that kind of sucks. But stay tuned, I do have some more news coming up for some new developments, and I've just registered a brand new business name. In fact, I've resurrected an old one. So thanks everyone for watching, and look out for more fun stuff coming up. Cheers guys.